What if Jon Snow's dragon landed on the Iron Throne before Joffrey could sit it? Let's explore the depths of it in the video. Castle Black sits against the base of the wall, like a man bracing for weather that never quite arrives. Above it, 700 feet of ancient ice climbs straight into the dark, and the wall runs on for 300 miles in either direction, cold and permanent and indifferent to everything that happens at its feet. Jon Snow stands in the outer yard in the hour before dawn with his black cloak close around him and Ghost sitting at his heel. His dragon is restless. It has been restless for 2 days, shifting on the upper battlements, spreading its wings and folding them back, its eyes bright and open even in the dark when everything else is asleep. Jon is 17, dark-haired and grey-eyed, with the lean build of someone still growing into himself. Longclaw hangs at his hip, the Valyrian steel quiet at this hour, gifted to him by Lord Commander Jor Mormont. He has worn his blacks every day since he arrived, and he wears them now. Ghost is still beside him, the albino direwolf, with its red eyes and white fur, watching the northern tree line in silence the way he always does. But Jon is watching the dragon. He feels its restlessness through the bond between them. It is the same kind of feeling he has with Ghost, but different in its weight, older and more insistent. Running through him like cold comes through a stone wall. The dragon is not afraid. It is pointed. For 2 days now, it has been facing south, as though something out there is pulling at it, and the longer Jon feels it through the bond, the more he understands that whatever is pulling the dragon is pulling at both of them. He does not yet know what is waiting in the south. The raven arrives just before first light. The cry goes up in the rookery and a brother comes running, and within minutes the message is being read aloud in the main hall to a room of men still half asleep. Jon stands at the back and hears every word. King Robert Baratheon is dead from a wound taken on the royal hunt. The new king is proclaimed. Joffrey, first of his name, Lord of the 7 Kingdoms, protector of the realm. Jon stares at the floor and does not move. Ned Stark is in King's Landing right now. So are Sansa and Arya. Robert was the one man in that city with the authority and the will to stand between them and what the Lannisters want. Now Robert is gone. Cersei Lannister has been waiting for this. The Lannisters will move fast, and Ned will be exactly as honest about it as he has always been about everything, and that honesty is going to get him killed. Jon can see how it goes, every step of it, and there is nothing he can do about any of it. He thinks of the oath. Night gathers, and now my watch begins. I shall wear no crowns and win no glory. Those words are his now, taken in full and meant in full. The wall is 2,000 miles from King's Landing. A raven covers 1,000 miles in 3 or 4 days under good wind. A man on horseback covers 25 miles a day on the King's Road. Even if he rode south this morning, the crisis would be over long before he arrived. And he cannot ride south. Deserters from the watch are executed. He took those words, and he meant them, and he is bound by them. He goes back outside. The dragon is gone from the battlements. Jon steps through the gate and sees the empty stone where the creature was roosting. Bare sky above it, the first grey light beginning in the east. He turns south and finds it, already far out. Already high, wings spread wide and beating hard against the pale sky, growing smaller as he watches. He did not command it. He would not have known how to command it, even if he had wanted to. The bond between them is not a leash or a bridle. It is something older and less controlled. more like a current running between two things than a road from one to the other. When the raven was read aloud in the hall, his fear for Ned and Sansa and Arya moved through that bond like heat through iron. The dragon does not understand Night's Watch oaths or the laws of succession or what a king is. It understands threat. It understands south. It goes. Jon watches until it disappears into the morning sky, and there is nothing left to watch. The brothers on the wall go quiet. Several of them stand there looking south, long after it is gone. Some of them are old men who have served for 30 years, seen strange things at the edge of the world, kept their oaths through harder winters than this one. None of them have seen anything like what just left. No one alive has. It is the only dragon in the world, and it is flying south toward King's Landing at a speed no horse can match, and no raven can outrun. Jon stands at the base of the wall with Ghost pressed against his leg. He has the oath and the ice rising above him, and 2,000 miles of road he cannot ride. His family is somewhere at the far end of that road. His dragon is already ahead of him, already a black speck, and then nothing, already gone. He looks south for a long time. The wall stretches away in both directions, 700 feet high, 300 miles long, permanent as anything in the world. He has served it gladly, sworn to it willingly. He has never once thought of it as a cage. Robert Baratheon is not yet cold when Cersei Lannister begins to move. His body lies in the royal chambers above the great hall, candles burning at his head and feet, servant standing silently by the walls. He was a large man in life, Robert, and death has not changed. That the broad chest still fills the bedclothes, the famous black beard shot through with grey, the big hands folded across his stomach. The smell of wax and the long days of his dying hang in the air. Cersei stands at the foot of the bed for a moment, looks at what remains of the man she has spent 20 years enduring, and turns and walks out. She calls the small council within the hour. They gather in the round chamber off the throne room, Varys first. Gliding in on soft shoes, the bold eunuch settling into his seat and folding his hands and arranging his face into careful blankness. Pycelle comes next, chain of metals heavy on his old neck, white beard long, moving with the shuffling slowness of a man twice as frail as he actually is. Petyr Baelish comes last, well-dressed, as always, a slight beard on his chin, and a small, knowing smile on his mouth that seems to amuse only him. Jaime is not at the table. He stands at the door in his white cloak, Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, and he watches his sister with the particular attention of a man who has decided the world only matters as far as she is concerned. Cersei lays it out plainly. Robert is dead, Joffrey is king. The one obstacle is a letter Robert dictated on his deathbed, a letter that names Eddard Stark, protector of the realm, and muddles the succession. The letter is parchment. Parchment can be dealt with. She looks at Petyr Baelish when she says this. Baelish leans back in his chair with the ease of a man at home in rooms where decisions get made. He is the master of coin, 30 years old and of no great house, and somehow he is the most useful person in the room. He says he can reach the commander of the gold cloaks. He has an understanding with the man. The City Watch will back whoever needs backing, if the backing comes with the right arrangement attached. He does not name a price for himself. He never does, not directly. Varys watches all of this from his chair. He offers nothing. He makes a sound that might be acknowledgement and might be something else, and he watches Cersei with his large, soft eyes, and he gives away nothing at all. Pycelle says the realm requires stability. He says, Joffrey is of course the rightful king, and the throne must not remain empty, and the small folk need certainty in uncertain times. He has been saying versions of this to various rulers for 40 years, and he has never once said it on behalf of anyone but whoever was paying him. Cersei does not wait for him to finish. The plan comes together quickly, and it is a simple one. Bring Ned Stark to the throne room tomorrow. Have Joffrey walk the length of that hall and sit the Iron Throne in front of the court. Demand Stark's fealty before everyone. If he produces the letter, Cersei will tear it up in front of them all. If he refuses to bend the knee, the gold cloaks are there. It is fast. It is clean. By midday tomorrow, it is done. With that, the small council adjourns. Meanwhile, in the Tower of the Hand, Ned Stark sits at his writing table and reads the letter again. He has read it 3 times now. Most of the words are Robert's, dictated in a fading voice from a deathbed, and Ned wrote them down faithfully. The one word that is his own is the one that matters. Robert, said Joffrey. Ned wrote the rightful heir. It was an honest change and a necessary one, and Ned knows it will be the thing that gets him killed if he cannot make it stick. He holds the letter and turns it over in his hands. He is not well placed. He has a handful of loyal guards and 2 daughters, and a city that is turning against him, one purchased loyalty at a time. Sansa is in the rooms above him, 13 years old, and auburn-haired and still holding herself with the careful composure of a girl who believes things resolve the way they are supposed to resolve. Arya is somewhere below, 9 in the books, and 11 by the look of her, and already more dangerous in a narrow hallway than half the men in this tower. But neither of them is a garrison, and Ned knows it. He thinks for a moment about taking both of them and riding for the harbor tonight. He thinks about the gold cloaks at every gate and the Lannister soldiers in the yards below, and he decides against it. Instead, he writes to Dragonstone. Stannis Baratheon is Robert's true legal heir by birth order, and Stannis has already been sending accusations about Joffrey's parentage to lords across the realm. He needs to hear that Robert is dead, that Cersei is moving, and that there is a man in the Red Keep holding a letter that will not survive the week unless someone with ships and swords is coming. Ned keeps it short. Stannis is not a man who needs things explained twice. He sends the raven, he sits back down, he holds the letter, and he waits below in the training yard. Arya Stark is working through her forms for the 2nd hour in a row. She is small and quick, and she has the same grey eyes as her father, and she moves through the water dancer's steps with a focus that belongs to someone who has found the one thing they are genuinely good at and intends to get better. Needle is at her hip, her brown hair is out of her face, and her feet are moving right the way her teacher showed her, light and deliberate and already a little hard to predict. Her teacher watches from across the yard and says nothing. The morning is quiet. The sun is up over the Red Keep's high walls, and the yard feels like the only calm place left in the capital. Arya has no idea what has happened in the night, no idea what is being decided in the rooms above her. She runs the form again from the beginning. Her feet are right, her arm is loose. Somewhere in the tower, her father is holding a letter in both hands and waiting for the city to fall down around him. Winterfell without Eddard Stark is still Winterfell, but it is quieter than it should be. The great hall still fills at mealtimes, the guards still walk the walls, the hot springs still push their warmth up through the castle's stones and keep the corridors livable when the rest of the north has gone cold. But there is a quality to the silence in the rooms. Where Ned usually sits that Robb has not been able to shake in all the months since his father rode south. He is 17, and he has been holding the castle in Ned's absence, and most days he feels equal to it. Some mornings he does not. He is in the great hall going over accounts when word comes that his mother has ridden in through the gate. He goes out to meet her in the yard. Catelyn Stark is 34 years old, auburn-haired and blue-eyed in the Tully way, and she is a woman who keeps herself composed as a matter of principle. She is not fully composed when she dismounts. The road from the Eyrie to Winterfell is long, and she has pushed it hard, and there is something tight around her eyes that Robb recognizes as worry being held at arm's length. Grey Wind comes up beside Robb, and she gives the big dire wolf a glance and rests one hand briefly on Robb's arm before they go inside. She tells him what happened over a meal she barely touches. She arrested Tyrion Lannister on the road south, at an inn at the crossroads. Convinced he had sent the man who tried to kill Bran, she took him all the way to the Eyrie to face her sister Lysa. Tyrion called for trial by combat. A sellsword fought for him, and he walked out of the Eyrie a free man. The Lannisters know all of this now. The Lannisters are the second most powerful family in the realm, and they have a long memory, and they are not the forgiving type. Whatever trouble was already coming from King's Landing, she has added to it. She says she would do it again, that she still believes what she believed. But she says it like a woman who knows the price is going to be higher than she planned for. Robb listens. He says we already knew the Lannisters were the problem. The Raven arrives the next morning. The castle maester comes to the great hall before the household has finished breaking their fast. The message in his hand, and his face tells Robb most of what he needs to know before anyone reads a word. Catelyn is already at the table. She has been up since before dawn by the look of her. She reads the Raven aloud. King Robert Baratheon is dead, killed by a boar on the royal hunt. The new king is proclaimed Joffrey, first of his name. Lord Eddard Stark remains in King's Landing as Hand. She sets the message down. She does not look at Robb right away. She looks at the table. Robb knows what it means without her explaining it. Robert was the one man whose authority could stand between his father and Cersei Lannister. Robert is gone. The letter naming Ned Protector of the Realm is parchment in a hostile city, and the gold cloaks are not loyal to parchment. He says, "We call the banners." He says it quietly, and he means it completely. Catelyn does not argue with the decision itself. She argues with the pace of it. She says, "Send ravens first, and hear back before the host rides." That intelligence matters more than speed at this stage. That an army marching south blind is an army marching into someone else's plan. She says all of this, and she is right about all of it, and Robb knows she is right, and he nods, and then he tells the maester to start sending the ravens, which is what she said. But the banners are still coming. Theon Greyjoy is standing at the back of the hall through all of this. He has been in Winterfell since he was old enough to understand why he was there. Balon Greyjoy's last living son held here to keep his father quiet after the failed rebellion. He is 20 years old and dark-haired and compact, handsome in the way of a man who has learned to wear confidence as protection, and he has spent years learning the rhythms of this castle and the faces of the men inside it. He watches Robb make his decision. He watches Catelyn fold her worry into practicality and back Robb's plan with her expertise. He watches the maester go. He does his own accounting behind his eyes, the quiet arithmetic of a man who lives in a house that is not his. If the Starks ride south, and it goes well, he is the loyal ward of a powerful family. If it goes badly, the castle behind him is a very large and very defensible structure, and his father is across a very wide sea. He has been counting the walls of Winterfell for years, without quite letting himself know why. He pushes off the wall and tells Robb he will do whatever is needed. Robb grabs his shoulder and says he is glad of it. he means it. That is the thing about Robb Stark. He always means it, and it is the most useful and most dangerous thing about him. 3 floors above the great hall, Bran Stark wakes from a dream. He is 10 years old, and he has not walked in months, and he dreams the way people dream when they have been sleeping longer than usual and thinking harder than usual and lying still in a bed while large things happen around them. The dreams have been strange lately. This one is the strangest yet. He sees grey wolves running through dark trees, their breath coming in clouds, their feet on frozen ground. Above the trees a shadow is moving fast, moving south. Something with wings wider than the wolves are long. Something deliberate, something gone before he can hold the image steady. He wakes. Summer lifts his grey head from the foot of the bed and watches him. Bran asks one of the servants to bring Robb up. Robb comes that evening, tired from a day of sending ravens and arguing travel routes. He sits on the edge of the bed, and Bran tells him about the shadow with wings. Moving south from the north, fast and purposeful, like something the wall let loose. Robb looks at him for a long moment. He has learned not to dismiss what Bran tells him about his dreams. The boy has been different since the fall, quieter and further away sometimes, and the things he says that seem strange often stop seeming strange after a few days. He does not know what to do with this one yet. He files it away and goes back down to his ravens. The throne room of the Red Keep is built for moments like this one, and Cersei Lannister has made sure this moment looks the way it is supposed to look. The court is assembled on both sides of the long hall, lords and ladies in their formal clothes, knights in polished armor, courtiers who have learned over many years that the safest position in any room is the one where you look as though you belong there. Candles burn in the iron sconces along the walls. Morning light falls in long angles through the high lancet windows set near the top of the hall, crossing the stone floor and the tall pillars that line both sides, reaching all the way to the far end where the Iron Throne waits. It is enormous, and it is ugly, and it has always been both of those things deliberately. 1,000 swords, surrendered enemies' swords, melted down by the fire of a dragon dead 200 years, and hammered into something that only resembles a seat from a distance. Up close, it is all edges and the wrong angles, and the constant low promise that sitting in it requires a certain kind of person. No one is sitting in it right now. Joffrey Baratheon walks toward it from the far doors. He is 16, golden-haired and slight, and he walks the way a young man walks when he believes the room is watching him and is glad of it. Beside him, Jaime Lannister moves in his white Kingsguard cloak, tall and golden-haired and green-eyed, and still the most dangerous man in the room even in the middle of a ceremony. The rest of the Kingsguard flank the procession. The hall is full, and it is quiet, and it should have been over in minutes. At the foot of the throne steps, Eddard Stark is waiting. He is 35 years old, dark-haired, going grey-eyed, with the weathered face of a man who has spent most of his life in the north, and the bearing of a man who has thought hard about what honor costs and decided to pay it anyway. The golden hand badge sits at his breast. He is holding a folded letter. He had already read it aloud before Joffrey reached the steps. He stood at the far end of the hall, and he read every word, his voice carrying without effort, steady and clear, no theatrics. Robert's will, the dead king's last instructions, naming Ned protector of the realm during the minority of the rightful heir. Not Joffrey, the rightful heir. He read it the whole way through, and he watched Cersei while he read it. She listened with her face like a wall. When Ned finished, she crossed to him and took the letter out of his hand. She tore it in two, then in two. Again she dropped the pieces on the floor of the throne room. Now Joffrey takes a step toward the throne. Another. Barristan Selmy stands at the foot of the steps in his white armor, white-haired and deep-set in the eyes, and still carrying himself at 62, the way soldiers carry themselves when they have spent their whole lives making the body useful. He is not moving. Near the wall, Varys stands in his flowing robes, bald and silent, and watching everything from behind a face that gives nothing away. Pycelle sits in his chair, with his chain of metals across his chest and his ancient hands folded in his lap. And between the door and the throne, Petyr Baelish stands with his eyes moving steadily across the room, from Joffrey to the gold cloaks at the walls, to Ned, to Cersei, back to Joffrey, running his count 4 steps. One of the high lancet windows above the hall shatters inward. Stone dust drops from the broken frame in a grey curtain. The sound is enormous. People scream. The nearest candles blow sideways, and for a moment the light in that end of the hall goes strange and flickering. Something comes through the gap in the window, not through the doors at the end of the hall. Not from the floor, from above, from the high window the light was falling through a moment ago, and it comes down fast and it lands on the Iron Throne. The sound it makes when it lands is nothing like what anyone in the hall expects. Not a crash. More like the throne itself, shifting, a deep groan of metal underweight that the metal was always meant to carry and had not carried in a very long time. The dragon settles, its wings spread for one moment and then fold back against its sides. Its tail curls around the base of the throne where the swords are densest and oldest. It is large enough to fill the seat and then some, its body draped across the mass of blades the way water fills a vessel, completely. Without effort, it does not breathe fire. It does not scream or lunge. It lowers its head and opens its eyes and looks at the boy standing on the steps below it. Joffrey stops walking. Cersei reaches him before he can move. Again, she grabs his shoulder, both hands, and she pulls him back one step and keeps her hands there. Her eyes move across the room, fast and hard. The gold cloaks are at the walls. They came in today with weapons and the confidence of men who had already been paid, and they are now standing with their backs to the stone and their hands well away from their swords. No one told them about this. No amount of gold is preparation for what is sitting on the throne above the steps. They are not going anywhere near it. Beneath the floor. Beneath the stones of this hole and the passages under the Red Keep and the cellars below, that Aerys's wildfire, the old Mad King's green burning legacy, resting in its clay pots in the dark. Enough to take the castle, enough to take half the city above it. A frightened dragon in an enclosed stone room is not a battle. It is an ending. Every soldier in the hall understands this without being told, and every hand in the hall stays exactly where it is. Barristan Selmy looks at the dragon for a long moment. He has served through more reigns than most men in this room have been alive for. He has watched kings be crowned and kings be broken, and the throne change hands by blood and by law and by force, and he has served through all of it by following the same rule every time. Loyalty belongs to the crown, not the man. The crown is the thing. The throne is the thing. He looks at the dragon coiled around the Iron Throne, and he looks at the throne itself, and he says quietly, in the direction of no one specific, what a man says when a thing he has always known turns out to be literally true. This throne was built by a dragon, he says. It remembers. He does not draw his sword. He does not tell anyone to stand down or attack or flee. He states a fact, and he goes still and he keeps his hands away from his hilt, and the room takes note of this. because Barristan Selmy is the most experienced man standing in it. Petyr Baelish does not move. He had been in the right position. He had the gold cloaks and the angle, and the moment, and if he had given the signal, it would have happened exactly the way it was planned. Ned on the floor, Joffrey on the throne, the thing finished before anyone had time to think about what they had seen. He does not give the signal. He stands very still, and he thinks clearly and quickly that he does not know whose dragon this is. He does not know what it means that a dragon chose this room and this throne and this specific moment to arrive in. He does not know which side of whatever is now happening is the side worth being on. Chaos is a ladder. He has always believed this, but a ladder is only useful when you know which way is up. He watches. He says nothing. He waits. Ned Stark stares at the dragon on the throne. He does not know about any dragon at the wall. He does not know what this creature is or who sent it or why it came to this room at this moment. He knows only what is in front of him, and what is in front of him is this: Joffrey Baratheon has not sat the Iron Throne. The letter Cersei tore is in pieces on the floor, but it named the rightful heir, and the throne is occupied, and no one in this room has the nerve or the means to do anything about either of those facts right now. He is not under arrest. The hall is silent. He stands in the silence at the foot of the steps with the torn letter at his feet and the dragon above him. And for the first time since Robert died, he is not out of time. The throne room doors are sealed. No one went back in. Cersei Lannister moves through the Red Keep with her golden hair, still dressed for a coronation that did not happen, and her green eyes doing the work her face will not. She walks fast. The servants in the corridors get out of her way by instinct, the way animals move away from weather. She finds Jaime in the passage off the Great Hall, and she pulls him into a side chamber and closes the door behind them. She is 32 years old, and she is the most capable person in the Red Keep, and she has been outmaneuvered by a creature that does not know what outmaneuvering is. She tells him what she needs. The King's Guard has 7 swords. They are the finest fighters in the realm. She needs it, driven out through the broken window it came in through, or driven out through the main doors, or killed if it will not go. She needs the throne room clear. Jaime looks at her. He is 32 years old, and golden-haired, and green-eyed, and he is many things, but he is first of all a man who has spent his entire adult life evaluating the distance between what people want done. He knows fighters. He has trained every man in the King's Guard himself, and he knows exactly what 7 swords can do against a dragon inside a stone room. He tells her this. He says we cannot fight it in there, not in that room, not in any room. She says why not? He says because a dragon that panics breathes fire, and what is under us. He does not need to say it more plainly than that. She already knows. They both know. Aerys to put the wildfire there, the old mad king building his last defense against a world that was already turning against him. And when the city burned, it would burn completely, a chain of fire running from cache to cache. 500,000 people in the city at least. Maybe twice that. Jaime had killed Aerys before he could use it, had driven a sword through the man's back to stop him from lighting the caches, had earned his name for it. Kingslayer, whispered like an insult. He had let them call him that. He had let them think the worst of him, and he had never told anyone why, because the why required explaining what Aerys had planned, and he had decided the city was worth more than his reputation. He is not going to burn the city now. Not for a throne. Cersei does not argue with this. She knows he is right. She turns and walks out of the room without a word, which is how she argues when she cannot find a flaw in the reasoning and has not yet found a different approach. She finds Pycelle in his chambers, the ancient Grand Maester, bent over a cup of something warm, his maester's chain heavy across his old shoulders. Pycelle is 68 years old, and he has outlasted 3 kings by being careful about which way the wind was blowing and whose favor kept him in his seat. He has been a Lannister man since before Cersei was born, and he knows how to tell her what she wants to hear, while also being useful. He straightens when she comes in, slower than he needs to be. He plays at fragility the way a man plays at cards when the stakes are high enough. She tells him about the dragon. He already knows. Everyone in the Red Keep knows by now. He says, wait. He says no dragon has lived in King's Landing in 170 years. The dragon pit has been empty since the Dance of the Dragons. The men who knew how to manage dragons have been dead for generations. There are no chains, no handlers, no dragon keepers left. The creature will grow hungry. It will grow restless. These are animals, large and dangerous animals, but they have needs like any animal, and the Iron Throne is not food. It is not territory that feeds anything. Give it time. It will go on its own. Cersei watches him with her green eyes while he talks. She listens for the part that is actually useful and files away the rest. Meanwhile, in the low passages that run beneath the Red Keep, like the capillaries in a human body, Varys moves. He is 38 years old, and bald and powdered, and wearing his flowing robes. And he knows these passages the way most people know, a room they have lived in for decades, every turn by feel, every junction by distance, every room above by what voices come through the stone. He has little birds for this, his network of orphan spies, children who hear things in servant quarters and sculleries and the edges of important rooms, and they have been bringing him information all morning in fragments. He is assembling the fragments now as he walks. A dragon came from the north. A raven arrived at Castle Black from King's Landing. The timing is right. There is a dragon at Castle Black in this world. There has been for some time, and whoever has that dragon is someone with Targaryen blood who has been sitting at the wall under a black cloak and a bastard's name. Varys has known about the existence of Jon Snow for longer than most people would be comfortable with. He knows whose son Jon Snow most likely is. He has been watching that particular thread for years, waiting to see which way it would pull. Now it has pulled all the way to the Iron Throne. He does not go to Cersei with this. He does not go to Ned. He is recalibrating from the beginning, which requires silence and thought. And he has learned that the first person who speaks after a major change in the game usually speaks too soon. He finds a quiet alcove, and he thinks, Cersei is not done moving. She goes to Barristan Selmy. She finds him in the outer yard, in his white Kingsguard armor, white-haired and straight-backed, his deep-set eyes watching the yard, the way a man watches a yard, when he is not watching anything specific, but is watching everything. He has been Lord Commander of the Kingsguard for decades. He served through Aerys IA, through Robert, through the Greyjoy Rebellion, through everything. She has never liked him, precisely because he is the kind of man who cannot be bought and cannot be frightened and will not follow an order he believes is wrong. It has always been an inconvenience. Today, it is an obstacle. She gives him the order directly. Take the Kingsguard, enter the throne room, remove the dragon by whatever means necessary. He looks at her. He is 62 years old and powerfully built even now, a man who has spent every year of his life in armor, and whose body has decided that armor is simply what it looks like, and he has the quiet authority of someone who has served so long that titles mean less to him than the weight of the work. He says, "Who gave that order?" She says, "I did." He says, You are the Queen Mother. Robert Baratheon is dead. Joffrey has not been crowned. There is no reigning king. Without a reigning king, the King's Guard answers to the Lord Commander's judgment on matters of lethal force. His judgment is that driving a dragon from the throne room with swords will kill soldiers and may kill the city. He will not give that command. He is not defying her. He is clear about this. He is following the chain of command as it exists. The chain runs from the Lord Commander up to the king. There is no king. Cersei holds his gaze for a long moment. Then she turns and walks away. Meanwhile, Eddard Stark is moving through the Red Keep with a different purpose. The throne room is sealed, and the dragon is on the throne, and for the first time since Robert died, Ned is not the one being cornered. He is 35 years old and weathered, and he moves fast, his dark hair going grey, the golden hand badge at his breast. He goes to the Tower of the Hand first, then down to the training yard. Arya is still in the yard. She is 9 years old in the books and 11 by the look of her, small and quick with brown hair and her father's grey eyes, and she has been running her water-dancing forms for the better part of the morning because no one told her to stop and she has not heard the news. Needle sits at her hip. She looks up when Ned comes across the yard toward her, and she reads his face immediately, the way children read their parents' faces when they are old enough to know that expression means something serious. He does not explain. He says, "Come with me now." She comes. He goes up to Sansa's chambers. Sansa is 13 years old, and auburn-haired and blue-eyed with the Tully coloring of her mother, and she has been sitting in her room since a servant told her the throne room was sealed, composing herself with the careful, deliberate calm of a girl who has been taught that composure is the tool you reach for first. She rises when Ned comes in. She looks at Arya beside him and looks back at their father. He brings them to his own chambers in the Tower of the Hand, and he bars the door. He tells them what they need to know, that the situation in the city is unstable, that they are safest here, that they are not to leave this tower for any reason until he comes for them himself. He tells them nothing about the dragon yet. Arya watches him with her grey eyes, and he can tell she wants to ask more, but she reads in his face that more is not coming right now. Sansa nods. She already understood the part about staying safe. He leaves them and goes back to his writing table. He writes to Stannis Baratheon at Dragonstone. Stannis is 34 years old and Robert's true legal heir by birth order, and he has already sent his accusations about Joffrey's parentage to lords across the realm. He needs to know that the situation in King's Landing has shifted dramatically, that Ned still holds the letter and the position of protector of the realm, and that there is now a reason, an impossible, unbelievable reason, why the coronation did not proceed this morning. Ned keeps it factual. He writes, "Robert is dead. Joffrey has not sat the throne. A dragon has landed on it. He has no explanation for what he writes. He writes it anyway, and he sends the raven, and he sits back in his chair and looks at the ceiling. Outside his window and across the rooftops of King's Landing, visible from the upper towers of the Red Keep on a clear day, the broken dome of the Dragon Pit sits on Rhaenys' Hill. It has been a ruin for nearly 170 years since the Dance of the Dragons. Its walls still stand, but the roof is collapsed and the interior is open to the sky. It has been empty since the last Targaryen dragons died inside it during that civil war, killed by the mob, killed by each other in the darkness, killed by the chain of events that ended with dragonkind gone from the world. The city below it grew up in a world without dragons and stopped thinking about that ruin as anything but part of the skyline. The city is thinking about it now. Rumors move through King's Landing. the way rumors always move through a city with 500,000 people and no official information, fast and wrong in the details, and right in the essential fact. Something large, something winged, the throne room is sealed. No coronation happened. Street corners have clusters of people talking. Shopkeepers are in their doorways. The gold cloaks at the city gates have heard things. The sailors at the docks have heard things. The small folk who have never been inside the Red Keep are piecing together a picture from what they can see and hear, and the picture they are building is not entirely wrong. In the throne room, sealed, and still and lit, by afternoon light coming through the gap where the window was, the dragon does not move. It is draped across the Iron Throne. In the silence, the 1,000 swords do not cut it. The throne was built for Targaryen fire, shaped by it, and the scales of a living dragon are not skin. Nothing in that mass of old blades finds purchase. The throne holds the creature the way it was always built, to hold what made it. No king has sat it today. The throne is occupied, and it is patient, and the city outside is beginning to understand, in the scattered, incomplete way of rumor and fear, that something has changed. The small council chamber is a round room off the main corridor, and it is not built for what it is being asked to hold this morning. Ned Stark calls the session himself, in his capacity as protector of the realm. The letter Robert dictated is torn. Cersei put it on the floor of the throne room in pieces. But the title was real, and the appointment was real, and until a king is crowned and countermands it, Ned is what Robert named him. He sends word to each member of the council. He does not phrase it as a request. Cersei Lannister comes. She has no choice. Refusing to attend would be a declaration, and she is not ready to make a declaration. Not yet, not openly, not while there is a dragon on the throne, and the King's Guard has declined her orders, and the gold cloaks are still rattled from this morning. She comes in her green dress, with her golden hair dressed, and her face arranged in the particular expression she uses when she is being controlled, and does not intend to show it. She sits. She does not look at Ned. Varys comes. Pycelle comes moving with his usual careful slowness, chain of metals heavy at his neck. Petter Baelish comes last, well-dressed, a slight beard on his chin, his expression the same as it always is, attentive, pleasant, non-committal, as though whatever is about to happen is moderately interesting, but not yet important enough to form a real opinion about. Jaime is at the door in his white cloak. Not at the table, at the door. His green eyes watch the room, and he does not sit. Ned opens the book on the table. It is a book of Westerosi lineages, the kind that the Citadel produces and great houses keep in their libraries, records of bloodlines going back generations. This is the copy that Jon Arryn was studying before he died. Ned had been looking into what the old hand had been investigating in the weeks before his death, following the same trail, reading the same pages. He had carried the book south from the shelves of the Tower of the Hand this morning before the sun was fully up. He does not make a speech. He opens to the relevant pages, and he states the facts the way a man states facts when he knows he is right and is not interested in being dramatic about it. He says every Baratheon in this lineage book for 3 centuries has had the same coloring, black hair. The trait runs through the line without exception. It is a Baratheon dominant trait, stronger than almost any other. He lists the names and the pages. He says, Robert Baratheon's children have golden hair, all 3 of them. He says the names, Joffrey, Myrcella, Tommen, golden-haired, not one black hair among them. He closes the book, and he looks across the table, and he says the rest plainly. He says, Jon Arryn died, investigating this. He says the children Cersei calls Roberts are Jaime Lannisters. He says Joffrey has no claim to the Iron Throne. He is a bastard born of incest, and he has no right to the throne under the laws of this realm. The room is very quiet. Cersei Lannister. Then she says, "This is treason." She says it the way people say words they have been saving for a specific moment, cleanly and without heat. She says Ned Stark has come to the capital, failed to keep order after the king's death, allowed a wild animal to occupy the throne room, and is now standing before the council with a book of family trees and making accusations against the queen and her children. She says he should be arrested. She says it should happen now, in this room. She looks at Barristan Selmy. Barristan is not in the room. He is outside the door on the other side from Jaime, in his white armor, and he can hear everything through the open doorway. He does not move. Cersei looks at him, and he looks back at her, and he does not move, because there is no crowned king in this castle to issue that order, and that is the only order he requires. She looks at the gold cloaks outside in the corridor. They are present. They were paid. They are also men who were in the throne room when the window broke this morning, and the space between paid loyalty and willingness to walk into a room where a dragon might still be interested in them is a very wide space. She looks at Jaime. He stands at the door in his white cloak with his golden hair and his green eyes, and his face gives nothing away. He is many things, and he is brilliant at most of them, but right now he is Lord Commander of the King's Guard, and the King's Guard does not arrest the protector of the realm at a Queen Mother's verbal order. He keeps his hands still. He looks at a point on the wall above everyone's head, and he does not move. The silence lasts long enough to mean something. Varys speaks. He says it quietly, in the direction of no one specifically. The way he often speaks as though he is simply noting a thing aloud that everyone in the room already knows. He says that Stannis Baratheon had already sent letters. Ravens to lords across the realm before Robert died, making the same accusation. Stannis had been sending those ravens for weeks. The lords of Westeros had received them. Some had read them carefully. None of this is new information, he says. The accusation Ned has just made before this council is the same accusation that Lord Stannis of Dragonstone has been circulating through the realm in written form. He does not say this to help Ned. He says it because he is making a calculation, and the calculation is this: truth that comes from a single source can be called a lie. Truth that comes from two independent sources, a dead hand and a sitting Baratheon lord, is harder to dismiss. He is watching to see how the room responds to that. Cersei does not respond to that. She has run out of targets in this room. Petyr Baelish leans back slightly in his chair and says that he will defer to whatever authority the realm recognizes. He says it pleasantly, and he says it carefully, and he says it in a way that means he is not doing anything, not on any side, not today. He says the succession question is complex, and there are legal matters that will need to be resolved, and surely the appropriate parties, lords, perhaps the High Septon, perhaps Stannis himself, should be consulted. He says he will support whatever outcome serves the stability of the realm. This means nothing, and everyone in the room knows it means nothing. But it also means he has not backed Cersei, and that absence is noted by everyone present. 3 months ago, Petyr Baelish would have found a way to position himself as useful to the Lannisters in this moment. He is not doing that. Pycelle says very little. He says the realm requires stability, and the succession requires clarity. And these are complex times. He has been saying versions of these words for 40 years. He says them now without conviction and without content, and he folds his old hands on the table and looks at the wood grain, and does not offer anything that could be used against him by either side. The dragon is still in the throne room on the other side of the wall. Everyone in this chamber is aware of that. It sits over the meeting like a fact about the weather, not discussed, not addressed, but present in every decision being made or not made around this table. Cersei cannot crown Joffrey without the throne. She cannot use the throne without dealing with what is on it. She cannot deal with what is on it without Barristan or the gold cloaks, and neither will move without a king's order, and there is no king. The circle closes the same way every time she runs it. Ned says nothing more. He has said what he came to say. The accusations are on the record of this council, spoken in front of every member present, in front of Jaime at the door, who heard every word. The book is on the table. Jon Arryn's investigation has a conclusion now, spoken aloud in the room where decisions are made, and it cannot be unsaid. He closes the session. She walks out without looking at anyone, and Jaime falls in behind her at a distance that is the exact distance of a sworn Kingsguard member, following the Queen and nothing else. The others file out. Varys last, gliding soft-footed through the door. And he does not look back. Ned sits alone at the table for a moment. He is still alive. His daughters are in the Tower of the Hand behind a barred door. The letter is torn, but the accusation is spoken. The throne is occupied by something that chose to come here. Stannis is a dragonstone with ships. The realm is not resolved. It is suspended, the way a stone is suspended at the top of an arc, not falling yet, pointing in a direction. Everything depending on what happens in the next instant. Ned does not know what that instant will be. He picks up the lineage book and carries it back to the Tower of the Hand and sits down to wait. Jaehaerys Lannister has been a student of Eddard Stark since the day he arrived in King's Landing, and what she has learned is this: the man cannot be bought, cannot be frightened, and cannot be argued out of a position he believes is correct. But he loves his children the way most men love nothing else in the world, and that love is the one door in him that does not lock from the inside. She moves, Sansa, after the small council session. She sends a lady-in-waiting, courteous, gentle, well-dressed, to Sansa's chambers in the Tower of the Hand with an invitation from the Queen to come and sit with her this afternoon. An invitation, not a summons. Sansa is 13 years old, auburn-haired and blue-eyed in the Tully way, and she has been raised to understand that an invitation from a queen is an invitation you accept. She accepts. She follows the lady-in-waiting down through the corridors to Cersei's chambers, with two of Cersei's people walking behind her at a distance that is close enough to mean something. Cersei receives her warmly. She sits Sansa down. She has wine brought, and something sweet. And she asks Sansa how she is finding King's Landing, and whether she misses Winterfell, and what she thinks of the city in summer. She is kind and attentive and interested, and Sansa responds to this, the way a girl responds when a powerful woman shows her genuine warmth, with gratitude, with relief, with the careful opening up of someone who has been frightened and is glad to have a reason to stop. Cersei is 32 years old, and golden-haired, and she has been performing warmth for every purpose except the obvious one for her entire adult life. She knows exactly what she is doing. After a while, she mentions gently that the situation in King's Landing is difficult just now. She says there are lords in the north who are mustering men. She says the last thing anyone wants is war. She says Sansa must understand how terrible war is. She has read the songs. She knows the stories, but the songs do not tell you what happens to the small folk when armies march through their fields. She says perhaps Sansa, who has such a good heart and such good sense, might write to her brother Robb just a letter, asking him to hold back, one sister to her brother, one gentle word between family members. It would mean so much. Sansa sits with her hands folded in her lap and her blue eyes going carefully from Cersei's face to her hands and back. She is not stupid. She knows something is wrong with the warmth in this room. She has not quite named it yet, but she can feel it the way you feel, weather changing, the pressure different, the light slightly off. She says she will think about it. She says it the way someone says it when they mean not yet, which is the most she can do right now. Meanwhile, in the lower corridors of the Red Keep, Arya Stark has not been to training. She is 9 years old in the books, and 11 by the look of her. And she is small and quick, and she moves through spaces like water through stone. Her water dancing lessons have taught her more than footwork. They have taught her that the most dangerous position in any room is the one where no one is watching you, and that a girl her size can occupy that position almost anywhere she chooses. Needle is at her hip. She has been in the corridors since before the small council session, watching the Red Keep the way she watches a swordsman she does not know, looking for the pattern, waiting to understand what she is seeing. She sees Cersei's people move Sansa. She counts the number of people who are not quite escorting her sister, but are clearly walking where her sister walks. She watches which way they go. She files the information, and she moves fast, taking the back passages, and she reaches the Tower of the Hand before Ned does. He is still in the council chamber when she finds him, carrying the lineage book back up the corridor, and she falls into step beside him and tells him what she saw, without drama and without framing. Sansa went with 2 of Cersei's women, and 2 men followed them to the Queen's chambers, and the door was closed. Ned stops walking. He looks at his younger daughter, and something moves through his grey eyes, the calculation of a man who has just understood what the next move on the board is going to be. He says, "Show me where." She says she is not supposed to be in those corridors. He says, "Show me anyway." She shows him. Ned goes to Cersei. He goes alone, without guards, without the lineage book, and he knocks on the door to her chambers. Twen Cersei is still sitting with Sansa, still warm, still gracious, and she receives Ned with the polite composure of a woman who was expecting him, and has been ready since the moment she issued the invitation. She looks back at him with her blue eyes, and she is fine, not harmed, not locked up, just sitting in Cersei's chambers with Cersei's eyes on her. He reads this, and he nods once at her, and he looks at Cersei. He makes his offer directly, because he has never been a man who approaches the point from an angle. He says he will not raise the accusation again in open council, not today, not this week. He will hold it. In return, Sansa comes back to the Tower of the Hand tonight. Cersei looks at him for a moment. She says, "Joffrey will be crowned." He says, "Not while the dragon holds the throne." She says, "The dragon will not hold the throne forever." He says, "No, but it holds it now." They look at each other across the room with Sansa sitting between them and the afternoon light coming through the window, and there is no resolution in this exchange. There is just 2 people who understand exactly what the other is doing, and neither one has enough leverage to force the end of it. Cersei needs the throne clear and Joffrey crowned, and she cannot get either without tools she does not currently have. Ned needs time and a king's backing, and he cannot get either without Stannis arriving or the dragon choosing to leave on its own. Both of them are stalling. Both of them know it. Jaime stands at the wall through all of this. He is 32 years old and golden-haired and green-eyed, and he has been in the room since the beginning, which means he has heard every word. He knows what Cersei is doing. She is using Sansa the same way she uses everything, as a piece on a board. He has watched her do this his entire life. He has done things his entire life to make the board easier for her to play, and some of those things he does not think about, because thinking about them leads somewhere he does not want to go. He does not say anything in this room. He does not add his voice to Cersei's pressure, or his hand to her threat. He stands at the wall and keeps his face blank and does not move when Cersei looks at him, and his stillness is a small thing, but it is not nothing. It is the first time since Bran Stark fell from a window that Jaime has not made himself useful to his sister in the moment she needed him to. Cersei does not acknowledge this. She returns Sansa that evening. Not as a surrender, she makes this clear in the way she arranges it. Sansa is walked back to the Tower of the Hand with the same courtesy and the same Lannister eyes on her that she was taken with, and Cersei sends a small gift along. Something perfumed, something pretty, the kind of gift a queen gives to a young girl she is fond of. The message in it is obvious. This was a visit, not a kidnapping. Everything is civilized, everything is fine. Ned bars the door of the Tower of the Hand and stands in the main room and looks at his daughters. Sansa says, "She asked me to write to Robb." He says, "I know." He says, "Do not write to Robb." She nods. She does not ask why. She has understood something today, not everything, not the full shape of what is happening, but something about the gap between what people say and what they mean, between a gift and a price, between warmth that is given freely and warmth that comes with conditions attached. It is not the lesson she thought she was coming to King's Landing to learn. She is learning it anyway. Arya sits on the windowsill with her feet up and watches Ned's face while he thinks. She does not say anything either. She is 9 or 11, depending on how you count it, and she has already done the most useful thing she will do today. The corridor work, the watching, the bringing of information before it became a crisis. She knows this without being told. Outside the barred door, the Red Keep settles into night. The dragon is still in the throne room. The throne room doors are still sealed. Nothing is resolved. Ravens move faster than armies and slower than rumors, and within 2 days of the dragon landing on the Iron Throne, the news has already outrun every bird in the air. King's Landing has 500,000 people inside its walls, maybe more, and 500,000 people cannot keep a secret. The servants who were in the throne room when the window broke have families. The gold cloaks who stood with their backs against the walls have friends at taverns. The courtiers who fled the hall when the screaming started have sent letters. The city knows. Something came through a high window in the throne room and sat itself on the Iron Throne, and the coronation did not happen, and the throne room doors have been sealed since, and no one in the Red Keep will say exactly. The rumor passed mouth to mouth through the streets and the docks and the markets of King's Landing is that a dragon has come back to the city. Most of the people saying it do not believe it while they say it. It is the kind of thing you repeat because you heard it, not because you credit it, but the details that keep coming back are specific enough to give even the skeptics pause: the window, the sound, the size, the wings. The sealed throne room. The cancelled ceremony. The gold cloak standing down. Specific details do not emerge from nothing. From the Tower of the Hand, Ned Stark sends ravens. He sends to Winterfell. Robert dead, Joffrey not crowned. The situation is held for now. He writes to Robb with a father's care and a commander's brevity. enough to understand what is happening, not so much that it reads as desperation. He does not write the word dragon, he writes, "An obstacle has appeared that has changed the balance in King's Landing. Come south with what strength you can, but come carefully." Meanwhile, in the chambers below, Varys sends his own messages. He has contacts in Dragonstone, in the Eyrie, in Highgarden, in every harbour with a maester. He is not sending news. Who knows about the dragon at Castle Black? Who knew before this week? Who has been watching Jon Snow? The answers will tell him more than the news itself. Petyr Baelish sends messages of his own. He has interests in Bravos, interests in the banking houses, interests that cross every border the Seven Kingdoms share with the world. He is sending the kind of message that does not commit to a position, but establishes that he is aware and available and worth talking to when the dust settles. He has always been worth talking to. He intends to remain so, regardless of who ends up with the throne. Cersei sends to Casterly Rock. Her father Tywin commands the most powerful private army in the realm, and she needs him to know that the situation in King's Landing requires resolution from the West. She writes plainly without softening it. The coronation failed. Ned Stark is alive and has made his accusation, and a dragon sits on the Iron Throne. She sends to the Lannister forces already mustering in the field. She tells them to hold position and wait for her orders. Meanwhile, on the island of Dragonstone off the eastern coast, Stannis Baratheon reads his ravens. He is 34 years old, and lean and hard-jawed, a man who has spent his whole life being the person who does the necessary work while someone else receives the credit for it. He held Storm's End for a year under siege during Robert's rebellion, eating rats at the end, and Robert gave the castle to Renly when the war was over. He does not forget things like this. He does not forget anything. 2 ravens arrive nearly together. One from Ned Stark. The accusation has been formally raised before the small council. The evidence is on the record. Joffrey is not crowned. The legal position is clear. If Joffrey is a bastard, the throne passes to the next trueborn Baratheon by birth order, which is Stannis. One from one of Varys's contacts in the city, a dragon has returned to King's Landing and is sitting on the Iron Throne, and no one can move it. His advisors react the way men react when a new power enters a game they thought they understood. There is alarm in the room, and there is calculation, and there is the particular quality of discomfort that comes from a development that does not fit the existing plan. He listens to them. He has always listened to counsel and made his own decision afterward. He says, the legal question does not change. Robert is dead. Joffrey is a bastard. The throne is his by law. He says a dragon does not change the law. He says what a dragon changes is the timeline. He is right about this. He tells his people to prepare the fleet. He is going to King's Landing, and he is going with ships and soldiers, and he is going as the rightful king of the 7 kingdoms. The dragon on the throne will have to decide what it thinks of, that when he gets there. Meanwhile, at Winterfell, Robb Stark reads Ned's raven at the table in the Great Hall. He is 17 years old and auburn-haired, with grey Stark eyes, and he reads the message twice. His mother Catelyn reads it over his shoulder. She is 34, the same auburn hair, blue eyes, and she is still the most practically intelligent person in this room, and they both know it. He passes her the second raven, the one that came through Varys' network, the one that uses the word dragon plainly, the one that does not soften the description. She reads it. She sets it down. She says, "This changes the pace." He says it changes everything. He is right that it changes the pace. He is not entirely right that it changes everything, because Catelyn has been thinking about what needs doing and what order to do it in since the first raven arrived about Robert's death, and her analysis has not fundamentally shifted. The North needs to ride south to support Ned. A dragon on the Iron Throne makes that more urgent. It does not change who needs to go or why. What it changes is Robb's urgency, which was already high, and drives it past the point where Catelyn can moderate it by arguing for patience. In the back of the Great Hall, Theon Greyjoy hears the ravens read aloud and does his own accounting. He is 20 years old and dark-haired and compact, and he has been doing arithmetic in the back of this room for years. His arithmetic is always the same, at its core: what belongs to him, what could belong to him, what the Starks owe him, and what he owes them, and whether those debts are going to be settled in his favor when the ledger finally closes. He is the last son of Balon Greyjoy, kept here since he was old enough to be useful as a guarantee of his father's good behavior. He has grown up in this castle, and he knows its walls and its garrison and its stores better than most of the men who live here. By right, a dragon on the Iron Throne. He turns this over. If the Starks ride south and win, if Ned is protected, if the succession resolves in a direction the Starks can work with, then Theon is the loyal ward who rode with them. That is a good position. If the Starks ride south and lose, the castle behind him is very large, and his father is very far away, and there are possibilities in the distance between those two facts that he has been careful not to look at too directly. He tells Robb he is ready to ride when Robb gives the word. He means it when he says it. He also means the other thing, the thing he does not say, which he keeps behind his eyes in the part of his mind that he does not share with anyone. 3 floors above the Great Hall, Bran Stark wakes from a dream of fire. He is 10 years old, and he cannot walk, and the dreams have been coming harder since the shadow with wings passed over the north. This one is different from the others. He sees stone, a great stone city, crowded and loud, seen from very high above. From the height, a bird sees it. He sees a hall of swords, a throne of blades with something coiled around it that burns warm even in the dream, a warmth that is not threatening, that is familiar in a way he cannot name. He sees a wall of ice very far north and a boy standing at the base of it, dark-haired, looking south. He sees the boy's face for just a moment, and then the dream breaks apart, and he is in his bed with Summer watching him from the corner. He calls for someone to bring Catelyn up. She comes. She listens to the dream the way she has been listening to his dreams, with love, with worry, with a particular attention of a woman who does not quite believe in green sight, but has watched enough strange things happen since her son fell from a tower to keep an open mind. She does not know what the boy on the wall means. She does not know what the throne of fire means. She files it in the same place she has been filing everything, Bran tells her since his fall. Important, uninterpretable, worth watching. She goes back down. Robb is already telling the stable master to prepare horses. They ride out of Winterfell 2 days later, Robb at the head of the first column. Not a full army, a fast advance force, men who can move at pace on the King's Road. Catelyn rides beside him. Theon rides 3 horses back, with his dark eyes moving across the road ahead of them and the castle receding behind. The grey walls of Winterfell grow small and then disappear behind the tree line. Bran watches from his window until they are gone. Summer sits beside him. The castle is quieter now. The ravens continue to come from the south, each one telling the same story with slightly different details. A dragon on the throne, a succession undecided, a realm holding its breath. He dreams instead, and his dreams are more accurate than most of the letters. The Lord Commander's chamber is a spare room at the top of a cold tower, and Jorah Mormont has been sitting in it since before the Raven arrived. He is a large man, broad through the shoulders even at his age, with a shaved head and a grey beard, and the kind of face that has spent too many winters north of the wall to bother with expressions. He holds the ravens in his hands when Jon comes in. 2 of them, folded and read again. He does not offer Jon a seat. He looks at him across the table, and he says what he knows. The way a man who has commanded soldiers for decades says things, plainly, without preamble, because preamble wastes time that belongs to the work. He says, Robert Baratheon is dead. He says, a dragon has landed on the Iron Throne in King's Landing, and no one can remove it. He says, the Watch has heard the dragon came from Castle Black. He looks at Jon. He says, it was yours. Jon is 17 years old, and dark-haired and grey-eyed, and he has known this moment was coming since the morning he stood at the base of the wall and watched his dragon disappear into the southern sky. He does not deny it. He says, yes. Mormont is quiet for a moment. He is 68 years old, and he has seen strange things at the edge of the world, things in the dark beyond the wall that most men in the South would not believe. And he is a man who accepts what is true regardless of whether it fits the world he expected to inhabit. He says, how long have you had it? Jon tells him. Since before he came to Castle Black. Since before he took the oath. Mormont is quiet again. Then he says, it matters. He does not say how it matters. He does not need to. Both of them understand that a dragon sitting on the Iron Throne is not a matter the Night's Watch can ignore by staying north of the wall. Jon goes back to his cell, and he does not sleep. He knows the oath. He has known it since the day he spoke it in the sept, with the candles burning, and the cold coming through the stones, and the brothers ranged around him, and the words coming out of his mouth, the way words come out when you mean them completely. Night gathers, and now my watch begins. It shall not end until my death. I shall take no wife, hold no lands, father no children. I shall wear no crowns and win no glory. I shall live and die at my post. He meant every word when he said it, and he means every word now, in the way that a man means a thing he has sworn to, even when the swearing has become the hardest thing he has ever done. He did not release the dragon. He cannot command what he did not order. He did not send it south. He did not tell it to go to King's Landing or to find the Iron Throne or to sit itself down on 1,000 swords. It went because of what he is, because of a bond he carries in his blood that he does not fully understand, that he did not choose, that does not answer to his wishes or his oaths or his reasons. The dragon went because something in it recognized something in him, and that recognition runs deeper than law. He is lying on his back in his cell in the dark, and Ghost is a white shape in the corner, and the wall is pressing down on him from above, all 700 feet of it, and he is thinking about what he is going to do before the thought has fully formed. The Raven arrives 2 days later. It comes from King's Landing, from the Tower of the Hand. It is in Ned Stark's hand, and it says less than Jon expects, and more than it says. It says, the dragon is on the Iron Throne. The realm needs to know whose it is. That is all it says. No command, no plea, no explanation of what happens if he does not come. Just the facts and the space between them, which Ned has always trusted Jon to fill in himself. Jon reads it 3 times. He does not need to read it 3 times. He understood it the first time. If he does not go south, the dragon remains on the throne without an owner the realm can point to. Cersei will name it a monster and argue for force. Varys will construct a story around it that serves whatever end Varys is building toward. Littlefinger will find a way to make it useful to himself. The lords of Westeros will look at the occupied throne and make their own calculations without the one piece of information that changes every calculation. The dragon belongs to Jon Snow, and Jon Snow is riding south to claim what is his. Without him there, the dragon is a siege weapon that has chosen a side with no soldier attached. With him there, it is something else entirely, something the realm has not had to contend with in 200 years. He knows what comes next before he fully admits it to himself. He puts the raven down, he goes to find Ghost, who is already waiting at the stable door. He is going to desert the Night's Watch. The law is clear. Deserters from the Watch are executed. They have always been executed. It is the mechanism that holds the institution together. The threat that means the oath is not just words. Men have been beheaded for this. Men who were frightened or cold or homesick. Men with better reasons than most. He is not fleeing from fear. He is not abandoning the Watch because the work is too hard. He is moving towards something the oath never anticipated when it was written, something no one thought to write the oath against because no one thought it would happen. He takes Longclaw from the wall where it hangs. The Valyrian steel is dark grey, and the hilt fits his hand the way it always fits. Jorah Mormont gave it to him. He holds it for a moment. He leaves Castle Black before dawn, through the back passage, the way he knows because he has walked every passage in this castle in the years since he came north. Ghost goes ahead of him, white in the dark, and the albino direwolf makes no sound. The King's Road runs south from Castle Black for 2,000 miles, all the way to King's Landing at the far end of the continent. He knows the road. He rode it north with his uncle, who left on arranging and has not come back, and whose absence is one of the things Jon does not let himself think about for long. He passes the places he knows. The villages that get smaller and further apart the further north you are. The inns that space themselves along the road for travelers who need exactly the distance between them, the stretch of forest where the tree line changes. Ghost runs beside him in the mornings and sleeps beside his horse at night and does not make a sound. The inn at the crossroads is where the road from the east forks. He passes it in the late afternoon of the 5th day and does not stop, because stopping means faces, and faces mean someone who can say later that they saw a man in black riding south, and he is in black and that matters, and he has not yet figured out whether to take the cloak off or keep it on. He keeps it on. It is the only cloak he has. He does not know what is waiting for him in King's Landing. He knows that Ned is alive, and his sisters are alive, and a dragon is sitting on the Iron Throne, and the realm is balanced on a question that only he can answer. He knows that the moment he rides through the gates of King's Landing, he is a deserter of the Night's Watch, and anyone who wants to use that fact against him will be able to. He knows that Ghost will walk into that city beside him, and the dragon will know he is there before he reaches the gates, because the bond between them does not end at 2,000 miles. He does not know who he is, not fully, not in the way that a man knows himself, when his name and his blood and his place in the world all point the same direction. He knows he is a bastard from Winterfell who took the black and means to go south anyway. He knows the oath he broke. He knows the sword at his hip and the wolf at his side, and the dragon waiting for him at the end of the road. It is more than most people get to know about themselves. Meanwhile, in the Red Keep, Varys receives word from his little birds. He is in the low passages, in the dark, and the message reaches him in the way messages reach him, through small hands and whispered words, and the particular network of children and servants who move through this city without anyone watching them. The message is this: a man in black left Castle Black 3 days ago, riding south alone with a white direwolf. No one stopped him. The Lord Commander of the Night's Watch let him go. Varys stands in the passage for a long moment. He is 38 years old, and he has served in this red keep since Arias T. sat the throne, since before Robert's rebellion, since before Jon Snow was born. He knows what fire-bonded bloodlines mean in Westerosi history. He knows that dragons do not choose their riders at random. He has served kings and watched them fall and rebuilt himself after every shift in the game, and he knows what he is looking at when he sees it. Jon Snow of Castle Black is riding south. The dragon on the throne is his. That means the question of who Jon Snow truly is, whose blood runs in him, whose name he should carry, is the most important question in the Seven Kingdoms right now, and Varys does not yet have the answer. He begins asking careful questions through his little birds. He is very good at asking careful questions. Ned Stark sits alone in the Tower of the Hand with 3 ravens on the table in front of him, and a secret he has been carrying for 15 years. The first raven is from Winterfell. Robb is riding south with the advance column. The banners are called. They will reach King's Landing in weeks if the road holds. Ned reads this and sets it down. The second raven is from Castle Black. It is short, and it is in Jon's hand. It says, "I am coming south." It says nothing else. No explanation, no apology, no account of what he left behind or what it cost him. Just the bare fact of it, in the handwriting of a boy who became a man at the wall and is now riding away from it. Ned reads it. He sets it down beside the first raven. He looks at the wall for a long time. He has known this was coming since the morning the throne room sealed. He has been piecing it together, the way a man pieces together a thing he already knows, and is looking for the courage to admit. He knows what a dragon is. He knows what a dragon chooses. He knows what it means that the only dragon in the world flew south from Castle Black and went directly to the Iron Throne and has not moved since. He knows what it means because 15 years ago he held his dying sister in his arms in a tower in Dawn, in the Red Desert, with the smell of blood and birth and the sound of men dying in the yard below, and she pressed a newborn boy into his hands and told him the truth about whose son he was. She made him promise. He promised. He has kept that promise through Robert's reign, and through 2 decades of silence, and through the day Jon rode north, and through every moment since then, when he has looked at a dark-haired, grey-eyed boy who has his sister's fire buried somewhere underneath stark composure. The name is Aegon Targaryen. The father is Rhaegar. The blood is the oldest royal blood in the world. He looks at the window. Outside it, across the rooftops of King's Landing, the Red Keep's towers rise against the morning sky. And in the throne room, at the center of those towers, a dragon is sitting on the Iron Throne because it flew 2,000 miles to be there. Dragons imprint on Dragonlord blood. There is only one Targaryen in Westeros. There is only one person in the world the dragon could be flying toward. For 15 years, Ned has been the only witness. He and one other man, the only other man alive, who was there when Lyanna died, who knows what happened in that tower. Ned has been carrying this alone for so long that the secret has become something he stops noticing most days, the way you stop noticing a scar you have had since childhood. He cannot not notice it now. The dragon makes it impossible to not notice. The dragon is a piece of evidence the size of a living creature sitting on the throne of the Seven Kingdoms, and it is pointing directly at Jon Snow with the accuracy of a thing that runs on blood and does not know how to lie. He cannot announce this. He knows this before the thought has fully taken shape. He goes through the reasons the way a general goes through terrain before committing to a direction. If he names Jon's true parentage before the right people and the right protections are in place, what happens is not justice. What happens is a 15-year-old secret suddenly in play, in a city full of people who are already trying to kill him, with Cersei Lannister across the hall, who has every reason to destroy any Targaryen claimant before it gains traction. And with the Martells of Dorne who have a different set of grievances about the name Rhaegar Targaryen. Elia was his wife before Lyanna, and Elia died in King's Landing along with her children. And the wound is old, but it is not healed. Naming the secret marriage means naming the annulment of Elia's marriage, which means giving the Martells cause to view Jon's legitimacy as built on Elia's dishonor. That is not a fight Ned can win from inside a hostile city with his daughters in the next room. Jon is only safe as long as he is unknown. The dragon makes him unknown. It also makes him impossible to hide much longer. Ned sits with this for a long time. Then he goes to find his daughters. They are in the upper room together, Sansa at the window with embroidery she has not touched, Arya cross-legged on the floor with needle across her knees watching the door. They both look up when he comes in. He sits down across from them, and he tells them two things. He tells them Jon is coming south. He tells them the dragon is Jon's. He says the second part with certainty, without qualification. Sansa watches his face, and she absorbs this the way she absorbs things now more carefully than she did a month ago, filing it before reacting. She says, "What does this mean for the betrothal?" Ned is quiet for a moment. The betrothal was to the heir of the Iron Throne. The heir of the Iron Throne has been Joffrey Baratheon by presumption since Robert died. But if Joffrey is a bastard, and the accusation is on the record now, in front of the small council, then the heir of the Iron Throne is not Joffrey. And if the dragon belongs to Jon, and if a dragon's choices mean what they appear to mean, then the question of who the heir is has become much more complicated than a betrothal between two children. He does not say any of this to Sansa. He says, "Wait for Jon." She nods. She does not push. She is 13 years old, and she has been learning in the last weeks that certain questions have answers that cannot be given yet, and that patience is not the same as ignorance. She goes back to her window. Arya asks a different question. She says, "Can Jon fight Joffrey for the throne?" Ned says, "That is not how thrones work." She says, "Then, how does it work?" He looks at her. She is 9 years old or 11, depending on how you count it, and she is watching him with grey eyes that do not accept incomplete answers, and the question she is asking is actually the most important question in the room. He has spent his whole life in a world where honor and law are the same thing, and both of them mean something. He is sitting in a city where the law says one thing, and a dragon on a throne says something different. And the gap between those two facts is where everyone in King's Landing is currently standing and trying not to fall. He says, "Wait for Jon." He says it the second time, because it is the only answer he has. When they go to sleep that night, he goes back to his writing table, and he sits for a while longer. Then he writes a raven. He writes it carefully, every word chosen, because there is very little margin for error in what he is asking, and no room at all for an ambiguous reply. He writes to Greywater Watch, the reed seat in the neck, deep in the Crannogs, the castle that moves so nothing can find it. He writes to the lord of that castle, the man who was with Ned at the Tower of Joy, the only other living person who stood in that room and heard what Lyanna said and saw what Ned promised. He does not say any of that in the letter. He does not need to. The man will understand what is being asked from the fact that the asking is happening now, after 15 years of silence. He writes, "Come south." He writes, "It is time." He sends the raven and sits in the dark and listens to the city outside the window. Somewhere in that city, across the rooftops and the sealed throne room doors, the dragon is still on the throne. It has been there since the morning the window broke. It has not moved. It is patient in a way that only makes sense if it is waiting for something specific. Ned thinks he knows what it is waiting for. He sits with his hands folded on the table, and he looks at the letter to Greywater watch until the candle burns low, and he thinks about a dying girl in a tower in Dawn who made him swear, and he thinks about what a promise costs when the world decides to collect. Jon Snow rides through the gates of King's Landing in the middle of the afternoon with Ghost at his side and the city already watching him. He has ridden for weeks, and the road is in him, the dust and the distance and the weight of what he left at the wall pressing behind his eyes in a way he has not let himself think about too directly. He is 17 years old and dark-haired and grey-eyed, and he is wearing black, the Night's Watch black he took on the day he swore the oath, and he has not taken it off because he has not yet decided what he is instead. Ghost moves beside his horse without sound, the albino direwolf, white as bone in the afternoon light, red eyes forward. King's Landing is enormous. He knew this from being told it, but knowing it and riding into it are different things. The streets are wide near the gates and narrow further in, and the smell is the smell of a city that houses 500,000 people in a space not built to hold that many comfortably. Fires and bread and animals and the particular density of human life. The people on the street stop and look. A man in Night's Watch black with a white wolf the size of a small horse draws attention on its own. But the city has been sitting with the knowledge of the dragon for weeks, and a man in black from the wall, arriving now with that animal beside him, the pieces assemble quickly in a crowd that has had nothing to do for weeks but watch and wonder and talk. By the time he reaches the Street of Steel, he can hear his name moving through the city around him. Jon Snow, Jon Snow. He does not look at the people saying it. He keeps his eyes on the road toward the Red Keep. Ned is waiting at the gate. He is standing in the archway with the golden hand badge at his breast, and his dark hair going grey, and his grey eyes on Jon's face from the moment Jon comes into sight. Ned Stark has always been a man whose face does not give much away. Years of ruling a hard land in a hard climate teach a particular kind of composure. But Jon has known that face since before he could remember, and he can read what is in it now. Relief. Something more complicated than relief. Something that looks like a man who has carried a weight for a very long time and is finally close to being able to set it down, and is not yet sure whether setting it down will feel like relief or grief. He dismounts. Ned crosses to him and puts his arms around him, and for a moment they stand there in the gate, and neither of them says anything. Then Ned steps back and looks at him and says, "The throne room is this way. There is something that needs to see you." They unseal the throne room doors for the first time since the window broke. The court has assembled. Pat. Cersei is there in a green dress, with her golden hair dressed and her face arranged in the composure of a woman who has decided she will not show anything today. Jaime stands at the far wall in his white cloak, green eyes watching the room. Barristan Selmy is at his post in white armor, white-haired, standing straight. Varys is in his robes near the wall, bald and still. Pycelle in his seat with his chain. Littlefinger at an angle to the door, watching the entrance. Joffrey stands near his mother, 16 years old and golden-haired and slight. and his eyes go to Jon the moment Jon enters the hall. The dragon is on the throne at the far end. The tall pillars rise on either side, and the light comes through the high windows, through the gap where one of the lancet windows no longer exists. The throne is enormous at the far end. The 1,000 swords, the asymmetrical mass of blades, the thing that has been a seat of power for 3 centuries and has sat empty or held dragon lords for most of that time. The dragon is coiled around it the way it has been since it landed, its tail wrapped around the base, its head resting on the mass of swords. It lifts its head when Jon enters the hall. It watches him walk toward it, down the full length of the room. Every person in the hall is watching it. Watch him. Jon does not break stride. He walks the whole length of the throne room with the dragon's eyes on him, and when he reaches the steps at the base of the throne, the dragon moves. It uncurls from the throne slowly, the way large things move when they are being deliberate. It descends the steps. It crosses the floor between the throne and the bottom of the steps, and it lowers its head and it stops in front of Jon Snow. It does not touch anyone else, it does not look at Joffrey, it does not look at Cersei. It has been on that throne for weeks, and every person in this city has wondered whose it is. And now it is answering the question in the only language it has, the language of where it goes and who it goes to, and the particular quality of stillness that comes over it when it is beside the person it belongs to. Jon puts his hand on its head. The dragon is still. The hall is completely silent. Barristan Selmy has been watching. He has served in this castle since Aerys Tie, since the time of dragons, since the men who built the Kingsguard understood that their oaths were sworn to the line that had come across the sea with dragons at their backs. He does not see a Targaryen face on Jon Snow. He sees dark hair and grey eyes and a bastard's upbringing in the north, but he sees the dragon's choice, and he has served long enough to understand what a dragon's choice mean. It does not need silver hair, it needs blood. His hand does not move toward his sword. He watches the boy and the dragon, and he stands very still, and something in his face, for the first time in this whole crisis, goes quiet. Varys watches from his place near the wall, and his expression does not change. He has had the answer for 3 days. The pieces assembled through his little birds, through the network that reaches from Castle Black to Dragonstone to every rook and rookery in the realm. He is close to the last piece. He watches Jon Snow stand in front of the dragon, and he files what he sees, and he waits. Littlefinger recalculates. He does it quickly, as he does everything quickly, running the board from a new position. A boy in black with a dragon has changed every number on the table. He looks at Jon Snow, and he looks at the dragon, and he thinks, "Whose son are you?" The answer to that question is worth more than anything else in this room, and whoever has it first will be holding something very valuable. Cersei Lannister watches a boy she has never met stand in her throne room with a dragon that has prevented her son's coronation for weeks, and she makes her last move. She brings Myrcella and Tommen forward. Myrcella is 9 years old and golden-haired, and she has no idea what is happening in this room. Tommen is 8 years old and golden-haired, and he is holding his mother's hand. Cersei puts her hands on both their shoulders, and she looks at the room, and she says clearly to everyone present, "These are Robert Baratheon's children. Whatever claim is being made here, whatever this creature chooses, and whatever it means, these are the children of a dead king, innocent of every accusation in this room, and they are owed protection." She is putting them in front of her and daring everyone in the room to be the kind of person who threatens children. It is not violence, and it is not law, and it is not politics. It is the oldest move there is, the human shield of innocence, offered to a room full of people who cannot afford to look like monsters. Ned looks at her for a moment. Then he looks at the room. He says no one has threatened those children. He says no one is threatening them now. He says it clearly, the way he says things that are true and important and need to be on the record. He looks at Myrcella. He looks at Tommen. He says, Maer Ea and Tommen are not in danger from the north or from anyone in this room. He pauses. He looks at Joffrey. He says, Joffrey is a different question. He says, Joffrey is a claimant to a throne he has not earned and has not reached. And that is a legal question the realm will have to answer. He says that question has nothing to do with his siblings. The siblings are children. The succession is a separate matter. The hall absorbs this. Joffrey's face does something complicated, anger and fear moving through it in succession. The face of a boy who has been told since birth that the throne is his and is standing in the room where the throne is, and the throne has a dragon on it, and the dragon does not care about him. Sansa and Arya are at the edge of the hall. They came in behind Ned, and they have been standing near the door while all of this happened, and now Jon turns and sees them. Arya moves first. She crosses the hall at a run, and when she reaches him she stops, because Ghost is in the way, and she looks up at her half-brother, at the dark-haired, grey-eyed brother she has not seen since Winterfell. And she says his name once, and then she puts her arms around him. Needle digs into his side, and she does not notice, and he does not care. Sansa comes more slowly. She is 13 years old, and she has been building a picture of the world for her whole life. And the picture had Jon Snow as her father's bastard, and the Iron Throne as Joffrey's, and the future as something shaped like a castle and a crown, and the life she had been told. She has been watching that picture come apart for weeks, piece by piece, each piece replaced by something harder and less predictable and more real. She stands in front of Jon, and she looks at him, at the brother who went north when she came south, who is now standing in the Red Keep in black with a dragon behind him, and the whole court watching, and she does not yet know what this means for her life. She says Jon. He says Sansa. There is nothing else to say right now that could fit inside what the room is holding. He puts his arm around her, and she lets him, and the three of them stand there in the throne room, while the dragon settles back toward the steps and the court watches, and the question of what happens next sits in the air above all of them, unanswered. Robb Stark rides through the gates of King's Landing in the early morning with the vanguard of the Northern Riders behind him and Catelyn at his side, and the city they ride into is not the city any of them expected. He is 17 years old and auburn-haired, with grey, stark eyes, and he has been riding hard for weeks toward a crisis he understood from ravens, but could not fully imagine until now. The streets of King's Landing are strange to him, the size of it, the density, the smell, the way a city of 500,000 people occupies space differently from anything the North produces. He rides through it with his mother beside him, and he keeps his face steady, the face of a man in command, and behind his eyes he is counting everything. Catelyn Stark is 34 years old, and she has been counting since before he was. She counts the gold cloaks at the gates and the Lannister banners and the absence of Robert Stagg. She counts the faces on the street and reads them for fear and anger and the particular quality of a population that has been sitting on an unresolved crisis for weeks. She says nothing as they ride. She is waiting to see Ned. They find the Red Keep in a state of suspended negotiation, not peace, not war. Something stranger than either. The throne room is open now. Jon is here. The dragon is off the throne and in the room, and it knows Jon is present, and it is quieter for it. Ned meets Robb in the yard, and they hold each other for a moment, and then they go inside. For the first time since any of them left Winterfell, the Stark family is in the same room. Ned, grey at the temples, and wearing the golden hand badge that has cost him nearly everything. Robb, young and hard from the road, and already holding himself like a lord. Sansa, 13 and auburn-haired and blue-eyed, standing very still with the careful composure of someone managing something large. Arya, brown-haired and grey-eyed, with needle at her hip, standing next to Jon in black, with Ghost at his heel and the dragon behind him. Tyrion Lannister is also in the room. He arrived in King's Landing 2 days earlier, short and mismatched in the eyes, one black, one green, with the particular walk of a man who has learned that looking like the least dangerous person in any room is its own kind of weapon. He is 25 years old, and he has one of the sharpest minds in the realm, and he walked into a city with a dragon and his family's succession in tatters, and spent 2 days being very quiet and very observant. He looks at Jon Snow, he looks at the empty throne, and then he looks at the dragon again, and something clicks behind his mismatched eyes that he does not say out loud. Varys is watching Tyrion from across the chamber. Tyrion looks up and finds Varys' gaze and holds it for a moment. Something passes between them. They both know that the other has arrived at the same conclusion, and they both know that the conclusion is about to become impossible to contain. Into this room, Barristan Selmy walks. He has been watching Jon Snow since he arrived in King's Landing. He has been watching the dragon since it came through the window. He has spent 62 years in service to the crown, to the idea of the crown, to the line that carried it, and he has watched the dragon choose, and he has done the arithmetic that a man does when everything he has always believed about where loyalty belongs is pointing in a direction he did not anticipate. He crosses the throne room floor. He stops in front of Jon Snow. He goes down on one knee. On the stone floor of the throne room, in front of everyone present, Ned, Robb, Catelyn, Sansa, Arya, Cersei, Jaime, Varys, Pycelle, Littlefinger, Joffrey, Barristan Selmy kneels. He says, "The throne was made by Targaryen fire, Paula. It has not forgotten." He says, "I do not name you king today. I am not in a position to name kings." He says, "I am offering my sword to someone worth serving, and I have been a long time finding that person." He lays his sword on the floor in front of Jon. The room is completely still. Cersei Lannister looks at the kneeling lord, commander of the Kingsguard, and she makes her last argument. She makes it to the room, to the assembled court, to every lord and soldier and servant present, in a clear voice. She says, "Succession law is clear. Robert Baratheon's son is the heir to the Iron Throne. Joffrey is Robert's son, and Joffrey is the king by right. Ned says, Robert's son by his lawful wife." He says it quietly, and he says it the way he says everything, without theatrics, without flourish, because the fact does not need decoration. The lineage book is in this room. The accusation is on the record of the small council. Stannis Baratheon's ravens made the same accusation to lords across the realm months ago. 2 independent sources, one dead hand, one living Baratheon lord, and the Book of Lineages. Joffrey is golden-haired. He names the fathers on both sides. He says the words that have been building since the council session, the ones that name Joffrey's true parentage plainly and without softening. Joffrey is Jaime Lannister's son. His name under the law is Joffrey Waters. He has no claim to the Iron Throne. Jaime stands at the wall in his white cloak, and his face gives nothing. He has known this moment was coming. He has been standing at walls, watching it come for weeks. Cersei looks at the gold cloaks. They are in the room. They were paid. Below the floor, beneath the stone and the passages and the cellars, the wildfire, green and patient in its clay pots, and every soldier in the room carries the knowledge of it in the set of their hands. Robb says to Jon, "Will you claim the throne?" Jon does not answer immediately. He looks at the Iron Throne, the 1,000 swords, the massive blades that Aegon the Conqueror built from the weapons of his enemies melted by dragonfire, shaped into the seat of power for the 7 kingdoms. He looks at it, and he knows what it is, and he knows what it is waiting for, and he knows what the dragon's choice means in the language of blood and fire, and the history of this family he has spent his whole life not knowing he belongs to. He says, "I swore an oath." He says it simply, the way he says things he means. Night gathers, and now my watch begins. I shall wear no crowns and win no glory. He says, I took those words because I meant them. He says, I broke the oath to come here, and I broke it knowing what breaking it costs. But that is a different thing from sitting a throne. He says, I will not wear a crown. He says, not today. He looks at Ned when he says this last part, and something passes between them that is not father and son, but is also not that something older and more complicated, the look of 2 people who share a secret that is too large for this room and this moment. Ned absorbs this. Robb absorbs this. Barristan is still kneeling. The room faces a problem that has no clean solution. Joffrey cannot sit the throne. His parentage is on the record, 2 sources, the book in the room, and the dragon has shown its preference. Jon refuses the throne, his oath, his bastard name under the law, the dead king who could have legitimized him, and didn't because no one told him to. Stannis Baratheon is the true Baratheon heir, by birth order, the next in line, now that Joffrey's claim is broken, and Stannis is not in King's Landing. He is on a ship. He is coming, but he is not here, and the throne cannot be decided by a man who hasn't arrived yet. Robb holds no throne claim. The North is marching south to protect Ned, not to crown anyone. He is acting Lord of Winterfell, and he knows it, and he does not reach for what is not his to take. The throne is empty. No one can sit it. Ned makes the only decision available to a man of his character. He stands before the assembled court, and he speaks in his capacity as protector of the realm, under the letter Robert dictated with his last clear instructions. He says the Red Keep remains under custody until a lawful king can be confirmed. He says the succession question will be resolved by law and by counsel, and not by force. He says until that resolution, he holds King's Landing in the king's name, and any move against the Stark household or against the northern soldiers now in the city will be treated as treason. He is the same Ned Stark who could not be ruthless enough in the original version of these events. His honor is the same. His inability to lie or maneuver or sacrifice the right thing for the practical thing is the same. In the original version of events that cost him his head, in this version the dragon is standing behind Jon Snow, and the wildfire is under the floor, and the gold cloaks remember the sound a high window makes when something comes through it. For once, his honor is enough. Cersei looks at the room for a long moment. She looks at Jaime. She looks at the gold cloaks. She looks at the dragon. She picks up Joffrey's hand, and she walks toward the door. And Joffrey goes because he has no other move, because without the gold cloaks, and without the dragon, and without the Kingsguard, and with his name spoken plainly in a room full of witnesses, he is a boy of 16 in a city that has just decided what he is. Cersei is not finished. She has Casterly Rock and the Lannister army, and Jaime and the long memory of a woman who has been underestimated her entire life. She is not finished. But she cannot fight today. In this room with this dragon in it, and the ground unstable beneath her feet, she withdraws. The throne room settles. Barristan Selmy rises from his knee and stands beside Jon Snow, and does not ask permission. The dragon moves to the steps at the base of the throne. It ascends slowly, and it coils itself around the mass of swords, again its tail around the base, its head resting on the blades. The 1,000 swords do not cut it. The throne holds it the way it held the first dragon lords who sat it, because the throne was made for this. Made by this. Melted and hammered into shape by the fire of Balerion the Black Dread in the hand of Aegon the Conqueror. Jon Snow stands before it in Night's Watch black with Longclaw at his hip and Ghost at his heel. He has refused the crown, he has not refused the world. Somewhere south on the road, Stannis Baratheon's fleet is making for the harbour. Somewhere in the neck, a man who was at the Tower of Joy 15 years ago is reading a raven that says, "Come south, it is time." The truth is in motion, the way truths are in motion when they are too large to stay hidden, moving toward the light, moving toward the moment when silence is no longer possible. The throne is empty. The realm does not know what Jon Snow is, not yet, not in the way that changes everything. But the realm is learning. And winter, as the words of House Stark have always promised,